Okay, so apparently Twitch Korea is shutting down.
Good evening, and thank you for being here. For those who don't know me, I'm Dan Clancy. I'm the CEO of Twitch. I think many of you know we made an announcement today about Korea. I went on the stream earlier in Korean where we had translators. This is a stream designed for the English-speaking audience. If any of the Korean audience was not able to make it, we're not doing the translation in this stream. So let me first of all take a moment to explain why we're here. I wanted to go ahead and explain the announcement that we made this morning. I suspect most of you that are here have read the announcement, and most importantly, explain why we made the announcement and also some of the details about the announcement. To be clear, this was a very difficult decision. It's something that we have put off for some time. We've looked at a variety of other options. It is a very difficult decision because of the Korean streamers that currently use Twitch to build their communities and the value that they offer. And many of them support themselves through Twitch. And then even more of them find community through Twitch.
I know, Joe.
So it's a very difficult decision, and I'll try and explain why we made it. We will be trying to answer some questions in chat. We have a team that's looking at to try and pop some out. I'm keeping an eye on chat as well. I may see something. Obviously, we won't be able to answer all of them. I've also picked out some questions that we think are the most common questions that I will answer right off at the beginning. So first of all, in terms of getting to the announcement, as we mentioned in the blog, we announced today that we have decided to shut down the Twitch business in Korea as of February 27th of next year. So I realize this is very disappointing news for the Korean creators and the Korean audience, as Twitch is an important part of their lives. Many of them have invested a great deal of time creating active communities on Twitch. And so this is obviously very disappointing. I don't want to talk about why we're doing, but also what we can do to help support you in this transition. So ultimately, the reason for doing this is because the cost to operate Twitch in Korea is prohibitively expensive. We spent a significant effort working to reduce these costs. The costs that dominate are the network usage fees. Korea operates differently than the other markets that we operate in terms of the relationship we need to have with the network providers and what we need to pay for them to deliver the bits that we are serving to the end users. The end result is that it's over 10 times more expensive to operate in Korea in terms of the network usage fees. As I said, we've been looking for ways to solve this problem. First, we looked at a peer-to-peer model for serving the fees, and we did an experiment on this. This reduced some of the cost, but not nearly enough, and we were still at over 10 times the cost of other countries, and it was still at a point where it could not break even. We also adjusted source quality to 720p, and while this made improvements, the improvements weren't enough. And the fundamental problem in Korea is because of the cost of delivering the bits, as Twitch grows, we actually lose more money in Korea. When we say it's not profitable, we don't mean taking into account any of our fixed cost of running the business in terms of me or engineers or anything else. We're just talking about the variable cost of running the service in Korea. And it creates a problem when, as you get increased usage, which is obviously what all of our creators want, is they want us to invest in getting more viewers to enjoy Twitch, that in fact you lose more money as more people watch and enjoy Twitch. We've been operating in this way for quite some time. About 3 years ago, that's when we started looking at how can we do this in a manner that is sustainable over time and responsible. And that's why we've been working and doing so many experiments to see if there was a pathway forward. And we finally had to make the decision that we did not see that pathway. So let me go into some of the details. So on the 27th, the viewers in Korea will no longer be able to purchase Twitch products, and streamers will not be able to monetize through the Twitch products. So both sides of it. And so you won't be able to subscribe or give gift subs or use bits. Up until that date, Twitch will operate as it does today. The final payout to the Korean creators will be on March 16th. And then there'll be, ongoing things from there. So we are still determining exactly what will happen after this date in terms of accessing Twitch. Again, we are terminating operations. It is likely that we will need to block streaming from Korean IPs. But what we need to do will be determined in a manner where we ensure that we comply with Korean regulations.
Dude, they have weird internet laws and stuff there, man.
One of the reasons why we cannot determine exactly what we will need to do after this point. However, we understand that a huge value for Twitch is the ability to support your life. And February 27th is when the monetization abilities will be turned off. So the next thing I want to talk about is what we can do to help streamers transition their communities. We know that these streamers have built their communities, and it's very important for us to help them transition them. There are two alternative services in Korea, Afrika TV and YouTube. And so we want to do all that we can to help them move their communities. We've reached out to both of these services to try and get them to see what they want to do.
Afrika TV.
These creators. The first part is creators being able to maintain their status so that if you're a partner on Twitch and you can monetize, we'd like to make it so that you can monetize right away on these other platforms. And same thing with affiliates, ideally. And then also seeing what else we can do to make it easier for moving the communities. On our end, to be clear with this announcement, any of the limitations on simulcasting do not apply to Korean streamers. We fully realize you will be promoting other services and want to figure out how we can help you do that. Ultimately, you'll need to pick where you think you want to move your community. I expect initially you'll simulcast, and then eventually you might even have some static notification on your stream so that people know where you ended up and what your channel is.
Damn, that would be crazy if they did that. If Twitch straight up was like the Korean streamers, hey, the streamer is now on this website,
obviously
go there.
It affects Korean viewers.
That would be insane.
The thing that made it particularly different is all of the streamers that are building communities in Korea and the impact that this will have on them. And that's one reason why it has taken us so long to do this.
He said maybe they can do that.
Why we've explored many other options. So now let me go through some of the other questions that I think will be common in here. Why are the economics of Korea so different from other markets? And now I'm not an expert in all the details of the different agreements with network usage fees for other providers, but for us, we need to pay the network providers fees based on the amount of data that they have to deliver to the end users. And as I said, that is significantly more than the cost of streaming in other countries by a factor of 10. Another question, why are we making the decision now? Again, this is something we've been considering for quite some time, and we've done experiments and looked at many other options. And ultimately, we felt like we needed to be upfront about what we were doing, and I'll talk some of the other options we consider in a second. Do you have plans to re-enter the Korean market in the future, or is this a permanent decision? So obviously, I don't know what may happen in the future. Obviously, we're not planning to do that anytime in the near term, and would only do it if we felt like that was a viable way to run the business. And to be clear on this has nothing to do with profits. It's about making sure that we are not losing money in Korea, and right now we've been losing a fair amount of money from Korea. And of course, the only way to come up with that is from revenue from the rest of the world. And we felt like that was not the right long-term solution in this situation. So let me go to some of the other questions. So what other options did you consider, and why didn't you choose one of them? So one option we considered was streaming at 480p. When we looked at that, that still did not get us to where we need to be. In addition, it's unclear if that complies with Korean regulations in terms of the service that you need to provide in Korea. And so it's not clear that would even have been a viable alternative in Korea. We looked at serving from outside of Korea. In fact, this is the solution that a number of other internet services have pursued, because this is not a problem that is unique to Twitch. Most recently, Netflix began serving from outside of Korea. Meta has done this, and other services. The reason we didn't choose this, and just so you understand how this works, what it would mean is we would give the bits to an internet service provider, let's say in Germany or Japan, and then they would be responsible for delivering it to the Korean ISP. Now, in this, it's unclear if they would realize additional expenses in this, which then, of course, would translate to us. More importantly, we did not believe that our service in many cases would really be viable. For some users, we felt Twitch would not be a watchable experience. We spend a great deal of time making sure that the interactive live video works well. You don't have buffering. And latency, of course, is a big factor for interactive live video as you have community and chat. And we felt that for many users, it would end up being not really a watchable experience. And if we went down this pathway, and one other factor, it's unclear if this is actually allowed. In fact, in the other cases when this has occurred, legal action has been taken against the companies for serving from outside of Korea for the cost of the network usage fees. At least most recently in the Netflix case,
I was going to say there was a lawsuit with Netflix
the terms of that
a while
settlement,
back,
but they reached some agreement that worked for both parties. So it's not clear we would have been allowed to continue to do this, but we felt like this would be giving false hope to our creators. And in fact, many of them would try and stay around to make it work, but in fact, their viewership would drop precipitously. And we felt like in the end,
you'd be hurting them more.
It would be worse for them.
It would, yeah, that would be worse for them.
Home, because
long term,
we did not think that long term the service could have been viable.
Yeah,
serving from outside of Korea.
That sucks.
We also looked at charging users or streamers differently than in the rest of the world, and eventually decided that it was not clear again that it would have been really a viable service if we had chosen that option compared to other alternatives. So what will happen in Korea after the shutdown date? So I know this will be a big question, and at this point we're not completely sure. This depends in part on Korean regulations in terms of what we're allowed to do and how we're allowed to operate. It is reasonable that we will probably need to block streaming from Korean IPs. And what happens on the viewer side depends again in part on Korean regulations and what we're allowed to do. It's driven more by that than the cost, because the cost would be manageable given the size that we would be dealing with there. One of the questions would also be, what if I'm an IRL streamer visiting Korea? So we understand that that is a use case. Lots of people travel to Korea. We want people to travel to Korea. If you do use a third-party cloud OBS, and I won't mention the one that I use, I don't want to promote that one over the other cloud OBS services, but those would still be able to operate, since you'd be streaming from the cloud OBS to Twitch, and then locally you'd be streaming up to the cloud OBS. And similarly, many of the third-party services that support.
But that doesn't fix.
Traveling. So I think that
doesn't fix the financial
to work after,
because it's about the conversions and stuff like that.
All right, that highlights a few of the first questions. Now I'm going to go to some of the questions we've pulled out from the chat. I'm keeping an eye on chat, but of course it is quite busy. So.
Yeah, I mean, if you're so it sounds like if you're incorporated in America or something like that, then you'd be okay.
Make money. I feel very bad, Patrick. That is exactly at the root.
What kind of question is, do you feel bad?
I will say that there are two alternatives. They're different. They're not the same as Twitch, and so I don't want to act like there isn't a meaningful impact. As I've said in other places, I think Twitch is unique. One reason we're doing this,
what's up, Tiangi?
We are providing the time.
I know this sucks.
And our assistance is we felt like that the other alternatives would have been slowly diminishing Korea and slowly draining Korea. And in fact, the creators would have been making less money and it would have meaningfully impacted, but we never would have come clean and told them about where we're going and what the challenges were in operating in Korea. And we felt like in the end, this would be better in the long run for those creators. But of course, there's no easy answer here. It's a difficult decision. Canned Star, will Twitch consider restarting its business in Korea when the laws related to network access usage fees is adjusted to be in line with other countries? Not ruling out anything in the future. Right now, we're only making decisions based upon what information we have right now. And so we obviously, if things change, we'd obviously reconsider these decisions. Can viewers still watch in Korea? Again, I think this is one of the questions that we will need to determine what is allowed. We would probably serve from outside of Korea. Some of the problems we would get in that with the amount of traffic we have right now in Korea would not be as acute because it would not be nearly as much traffic. But we are not certain what we will need to do at that point in time. And it's going to be important that we adhere to the regulations in Korea. But it won't be a cost factor because I think, again, the amount of traffic we will see will be precipitously less. It would just be people traveling from Korea or people in Korea watching people outside of Korea. From Rudy VTuber, I'm a Korean streamer and I have one question. At the previous stream, you mentioned about supporting streamers to transfer onto another platforms. Can you tell me if you have any specific plans? Also, does that mean we Korean streamers do not get banned for multi-platform streaming anymore? Yeah, so first of all, in the second part, to be clear, we had already changed our policies around multi-platform streaming. There are some limitations that we state with multi-platform streaming. None of those limitations apply to the Korean streamers affected by this decision. In particular, there is no issue with you promoting people to go to other services. In terms of specific plans, this in part depends upon the other platforms. The first thing we're focused on is trying to make sure that monetizing creators can maintain some form of status when they transition. But this depends upon our conversations. We've reached out to them, and we will be updating you as we get feedback from them of what they're going to do to try and support all of you in this transition. The other thing that we will certainly do is be sharing information about what different streamers are doing and what is working well. I know as I think about it, I think you would probably start by simulcasting, and then eventually you'd probably only stream on the other service, but you might put a static screen up while you're streaming that says, come check me out over there, come subscribe. And I'll say to all of the users that support Korean streamers, please at this time continue to support them until they can be fully transitioned to the other service. It's important to help them in this difficult time. You notice since 3 years, why only 3 months to streamers? This is not fair. So Play Per Man.
Dude, if they send out your notification when you go live on another website, that would actually be insane. That'd be sick if they did that. That would be
it's unclear what is the right
a really cool thing for them to do.
We chose this because we do think delaying it actually isn't the right solution for the streamer. Meaning, if we said this will be 6 months, then it's easy for people to say, "Oh, well, I don't have to worry about it now."
Why should they? They don't need to do that.
Viewers will start moving right away.
They'd be doing that out of courtesy to their Korean
it is much
streamers.
easier for everyone if we have a deadline in the reasonable future, so that way viewers start adjusting their patterns and streamers start adjusting their patterns. Because if a few streamers leave but other streamers don't, then viewers are stuck between two services. And in the end, as painful as this is, I think it's better to make the transition happen. If along the way we see we were wrong in the period, we'll consider that, and we'll see how this progresses. Why aren't Twitch's competitors experiencing this high service cost? So I don't know the details of their operations, but we do know that many other people do experience these high service costs. As I said, Netflix recently stopped serving in, started streaming from outside of Korea. Meta has also run into problems due to this. Now, each of their businesses are different. Netflix's business is very different than us in terms of their underlying cost structure of their business. YouTube is a VOD business predominantly, and again, the cost structures of VOD is very different. The idea of delivering from outside is a little more feasible. Africa operates very differently than us. They're a local company. We do not know what their costs are and if they're the same as ours as a local company. But their cost structure, one way to think of it is...
And I don't think most people are upset at Twitch. I think most people are upset about the South Korean laws.
They built their company around, and the economics of their company around Korean and how this cost structure runs, whereas we have not built all of the way our service operates around this. Let's see. How will this affect viewing experience on Korean viewers? Specifically, will we be able to watch in 1080p? So again, there are no changes until 227. And then, as I said, we're working through the particulars after 227, depending upon...
Wait, end of February?
Is
that 227?
Of what would be allowed.
I think he means 227 as in
Did you not make
like 3 months from now.
Other countries?
February 27th.
We've talked a lot about our obligation to run Twitch as a sustainable business and where we're at right now. And right now, and in fact, we did look at seeing if the loss was small enough, if we could just absorb it. But it is a significant delta in terms of the cost versus of running the business. And the problem is, as Korea grows, which it has grown, then that cost keeps increasing. And of course, our streamers want us to invest in Korea growing because they want their communities to grow, because that is good for them. They want more streamers to start streaming on Twitch. And so we want to be, we would be at odds with them if we were trying not to have the service grow. From Jimbo Max, thank you for the stream. I have a question. What implications would there be for partnered streamers in Korea upon implementing this change? Would they be prevented from streaming on Twitch altogether? If you're a partnered streamer in Korea, first of all, one of the things that's important is where your country of residence is, which is something you fill out when you become affiliate or partner. I know some Korean streamers travel outside of Korea, and how we will handle this in terms of monetization. It is about when you're identified with Korea as your country of residence. If Korea is not your country of residence, but you're in Korea but you travel outside, then when you're outside of Korea, you'd still be able to stream. But if you're inside of Korea, at some point after the February 27th date, we would need to be taking actions to prohibit you from being able to stream. And again, what we need to do will be determined based upon the Korean regulations. Are there no sponsors that can manage Twitch system in Korea and pay for it to Twitch? It's a good question. I think the simple answer is no, in terms of if there's a third party that would cover this delta. I don't think there is in terms of that, which is unfortunate. Moka-san, is this the start of the downfall of Twitch? Moka-san, no, not at all. This is a unique thing.
Dude, people ask so many stupid questions.
The market, as I've said, other businesses have had a similar problem operating in Korea, and it is because of the network usage fees that is unique to Korea.
People are so dumb.
Let's see. Are there other regions in danger? No. As I've shared, this is unique to Korea. And this is not something that will affect other regions. So let's see. So they can't just change their onboarding location. No, that would not be sufficient. You can and still monetize, but that doesn't mean you'll be able to stream from Korea if you change your country of residence. You still maintain your account and your status. But when you're in Korea, we will need to take actions to make sure you're not streaming from Korea. Let's see.
Dude, this whole thing sucks, man.
Killer Bean. Surely your network usage
I wish I had a better understanding.
You should have had a very decent leverage that the loss of your network usage would hurt their fee income. Was this not attempted with the government bodies responsible?
I feel like
yes, we tried all avenues with this. One of the challenges is this is a challenge that many companies face. Well, for the Twitch community, we are very passionate about Twitch. In the broader scheme of things, there are many other players in this market, and in fact, we don't have the leverage that you would think we might in terms of getting a sustainable rate, but we've been working hard to make it sustainable. From Prime Gaming, Army Dune, can you reveal how much you pay for Korean telecommunications company? I can't talk about the specifics. I don't know the details of each of the contracts. I will repeat the delta is even with the reductions that we have made, like with peer-to-peer in 720p, it's still 10 times higher than in other countries where we operate. So can you please put your answers to this in a central place so you can see them later? So first of all, we'll make this available in a VOD. We do have some of these in our FAQ to our blog post. And in fact, we'll continue updating things as we go along, especially in terms of how we can help our streamers transition. Yeah, and so basically starting in March, South Korean located streams won't be able to stream. Yes, in terms of IP, that is the likely outcome. In terms of specifically how that will be implemented, again, it depends upon what we need to do in terms of the regulations in the country.
Yeah, I mean, dude, this whole thing sucks. I wish I had a better understanding of like how like the net neutrality laws and stuff worked. I do know that the laws in Korea are
relationship with XQCN anyway. I wouldn't think so. Dance and Q. I wouldn't think so.
People ask the dumbest questions. Okay.
I see another question that I think we answered.
I swear,
in terms of random, can you consider streaming under 480p? There's certain regulations in Korea about what you can do to your service. It was unclear if even, in fact, we generally felt that transitioning to 480p probably would have been prohibited, although we did not. But it was not clear that would have been allowed, given regulations in Korea. Will this affect events like League of Legends, LCS, or will Twitch be able
to? This is a good question. I don't think they'll be able to do like Worlds and stuff there.
I think this is what I'm highlighting in terms of what we're allowed to do in terms of the regulations in the country, how that will work. And then there are other solutions they could use.
Maybe they thought it might happen, Cammy, because the
I think that's
Netflix deal just happened a few months back.
And we'll be working on this and communicating with some of the developers there to see what works. Hello, I'm a viewer watching from Korea. The problem with Korean services is largely the cost to telecommunication companies. Wouldn't it be possible to solve some of the damage by seeking help from streamers for a certain percentage of that portion? Yeah, that is one of the options that we considered was could we charge streamers to use the service? And we could have charged all streamers to use the service. And that's something that we considered, looked at. We didn't feel like in the end that would end up being a viable alternative in terms of the number of people that would have been willing to.
It doesn't really fix up any of the problems.
The cost of delivering the bits.
Like in a perfect world, like it would offset it kind of, but it just doesn't. It doesn't actually do anything.
Are still most of them are just making enough to pay their bills and to get by. Given the amount of the cost, it would have been a significant cost. Now, it could have been spread out across all of the smaller streamers that are streaming for fun, but it's not clear that they would have paid much. So we felt like in the end, that would have been one of these efforts that gave streamers hope.
It is futility.
And some streamers may have done it. Others would not have. And we would have ended up in the same place for most streamers, but it would have been more drawn out, and it would have run into this problem where some would be moving their communities, some would not be moving their communities, which would have actually hurt both of them. And as with all of these decisions, we weigh these things heavily, and we think through what we think ultimately will be the right decision. We don't have a crystal ball, though, in terms of knowing how each of the options would have fallen out. But appreciate that thought, and it's something that we definitely did look at. Twitch, will Korean streamer and viewer accounts be preserved in case the future allows the return? Thanks for the question. That is one thing that we need to determine what we're allowed to do in terms of with the regulators, in terms of privacy. We will certainly allow you to indicate that you'd like to keep your account. The question is it something that you opt in and say, please, I want to keep my account? Or that where you opt out and by default we keep your account, but if you want us to delete it, we delete it. And that's something we still need to determine in terms of the privacy regulations in Korea and our ability to retain the information. But at a minimum, you would have the ability to say, no, please keep my account active. That both would allow you access to your account if things change, and also when you're outside of Korea, it would provide access to your account. So we very much would like that. In terms of any Korean streamers, if for any reason anything would change, or if you would move from Korea where now you're living somewhere else, we would transition your status.
Okay.
We're eventually going to need to offboard you from partner and affiliate in terms of our ability to pay you because of this, the processing. And right now, all of our payment vehicles are in Korea. But
so if you,
for any reason,
if you get paid in America, if you live in America, you get paid in America, Korea, then you'd be okay.
Your status, so you don't have to re-earn that status. For Mushroom 49ers, what about U.S. military affiliated American citizens? It's a good question. Mushroom 49ers. I don't know about the details there. I don't know how the bases operate in terms of the IP addresses, but it's something we can look into. I'm an American living in Korea, but my money goes to an American account. Can I still monetize? So Becky B plays, if in your account, Korea, if your country of residence is outside of Korea, then this will not affect.
Yeah. Okay. So this goes back to what I was just saying. If you live outside of America,
outside of Korea,
outside of Korea, you live in America, hypothetically,
to purchase on February 27th, purchase any bits.
You could also technically stream to like an IRL toolkit or something.
In terms of streaming, that's something still to be determined. As I said, if you're
true, that would mean you have to pay taxes outside of Korea. True,
cloud OBS services that come to Twitch, those come from outside Korea. So the key thing is what we're going to think about is what we're doing with respect to streams that we see coming from Korea. Did you consider raising the cost of monthly subscriptions either globally or in Korea to offset this? We did. We wouldn't do it globally because again, that creates the same problem.
Yeah, that's what you were saying earlier,
and it wouldn't really solve it. But we did consider raising them in Korea, and again, given the cost delta, if this was a small delta, then we would have just kept going as we were today. But the cost delta was fairly significant. So any of the other changes we would have had to make would have been fairly significant, and we wouldn't have felt like they would have succeeded in terms of being able to maintain Twitch. It would have just dragged things out. And in the end, we were looking for a solution that we felt was a sustainable solution so we could continue to service the Korean community. People in Korea don't have access to VODs, do they? Right now, we had to adjust our VOD policy in Korea because of the regulations.
So basically, if you live in Korea,
we've already done that.
If you basically move
and
to
by
America,
the way, the impact.
If you can, you would have to get a visa. You'd have to get paid in America. You'd have to pay taxes in America.
It would be sometimes.
You'd have to do. You'd be an American, right? You're getting paid as an American.
Date with respect to the financial.
You could still technically stream in Korea.
I'm picking out some. Are you the owner of?
If
no, I'm
you
not.
are streaming to like a cloud service like IRL Toolkit or something,
by Amazon.
That so you're streaming to the cloud. You're streaming to an RTMP server.
Bowie, that's one of these questions that I think
that goes off to. Like it'll be on like a Twitch server in California or New York or something like that.
How they operate.
So that would work.
See what's allowed and what would be allowed with the regulations. But obviously, we would like to keep that's important content.
You never get a work visa that way. Yeah. Well, no. What I'm saying is like this is the only way that it would work
of that sort that comes out of Korea. So my hope and expectation is we can find a solution because the intent is not to impact that content. It's Jake and Bake here. if Jake, I see somebody answering, I think one of Jake and Bake's questions, that if you're going through a cloud OBS, then that is not coming from Korea. And so in terms of you, if you're traveling in Korea,
that's what I was just talking about.
You should be able to continue that, because we do think Korea, it's a wonderful country. Lots of IRL streamers like to go to Korea. We'd like to continue people to be able to visit Korea, highlight Korea. I guess, as I've said, it's the center. It's a center of gaming and esports, and so we expect people will continue to be engaging and going through Korea.
Oh, this
what
sucks.
about Starlink? Starlink is an end user option that is separate. I do not know the prevalence of Starlink in Korea, but
people have no idea how the world works, man.
In terms of its adoption.
People have literal,
will our streamers still be able to stream on Twitch after the 27th? We haven't announced when and what we would do after the 27th for those people that are still trying to stream. But that'll be something that we're determining what will be allowed with respect to the regulations. From Birkenheim, it's really sad. As far as I understand, there's nothing you can do, but instead of shutting down, I wish you could continue to be in Korea, even if the viewing experience was lower. This is sort of the thing we're trying to understand, because we know that there are lots of creators outside of Korea that Korean residents would like to view, which is separate from our Korean creators. And at least in other countries where we don't operate.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like those kinds of questions.
We are not required to block access to that for people that are still trying to access the Koreans in the rest of the world. There are the streamers in the rest of the world. There are other countries that we do not have like monetization set up, or we do not operate. So what will happen then will depend in part upon what is allowed with respect to regulations. And that's something that we still need to determine. But I share your feeling, Burkens CNGZ. Any progress on AV1? We'll be talking about that in the future, but I don't think right now is the time to talk about AV1. But dude, it doesn't solve
people, dude. People, they're so like, why? Like, it's not even relevant.
Looking into teaming up with streaming services still active in Korea, make things smoother for users, like transferring follows, subscriptions, and stuff. We definitely are going to see what we can do. The challenge with follows and subscriptions and that transformation is it requires the user's consent and the streamer's consent, and so that becomes difficult because the user, from a privacy perspective, we can't transfer information about the user that is subscribing to a particular streamer unless that user agrees. So it's unlikely we would be able to just transfer follows. And I think the best way is going to be for streamers to be streaming and saying, follow me now, subscribe to me, follow me now, subscribe to me.
Okay, you know what about this? I actually halfway agree with you.
To travel the world,
because you're right. People do have to ask questions to learn. You're right.
Yes,
but also people asking about like XQC or AV1, like things that don't even make any sense.
Obviously,
like it's just like question mark or like Starlink. Like they're not listening. That's what I'm laughing at. But you are right.
Your ability to stream.
People got to ask questions to learn. You're right.
Exactly how we can do this again. That depends upon what the Korean regulations allow. So I'm sorry I can't give you a definitive answer there. But it is because we want to support that need that we are not, we're leaving open the details of what we need to do with respect to that. Did he mention IRL streamers traveling to Korea? Yep, we covered that. What if people paid for a year sub to Korean streamers? Does streamer keep the cash or viewers get a refund at Twitch? The viewer can request a refund. So we're going to go through notifying viewers, and viewers can request a refund. And we encourage viewers to continue supporting their streamers as they transition, and we will work to try and make it as smooth as possible.
I don't want to say I'm surprised because I'm kind of not. But it's like I have like I'm really happy that they're wanting to be supportive of transitioning people's audiences to other platforms if they need to.
Still be able to stream from Korea, where the IP blockage blocked the chance to have any local streams without third-party cloud services. That depends upon what the regulations allow us to do. I think there is a reasonable chance that we will need to do IP blocking if it's coming from a Korean IP. but that's something that we won't have the final say on. We need to work with the regulators there. Can Korean streamers still use third-party monetization tools on Twitch to make a profit? They are still able to use third-party monetization tools. A number have talked about what about Starlink, and just, Starlink is a way that a user can get access, and in fact, it would not use, like if we're streaming from outside of Korea, then we would deliver to Starlink outside of Korea, and in fact, we would not have the network usage fees. That wouldn't solve the problem for us just to make everyone get Starlink. I'm not even familiar with the what the status of Starlink is in Korea right now. Yeah, for Bama Burn, Eyed Girl, I think I'm a small streamer here in the U.S. I'll be visiting Korea and want to share my travel experience with my community. Will this affect my ability? Again, we don't know what will be happening after the 27th in terms of Korean IP. But if you use a cloud OBS, which is commonly used, then you should still be able to share with your community using the cloud.
I feel like you're getting a lot of repeat questions at this point. I don't want to stop watching this because this is something that's so
with that. I know there are a lot of other questions there. Yeah, in terms of if you have a U.S. residency since being stationed here in Korea, will a VPN work? I won't go into the details of. In general, that is you are operating a VPN. If you have a residency elsewhere, then that also may be an option for you. Yeah, in fact, somebody said this. This transition will be challenging.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a net neutrality thing. This affects every
streamers as much as you can now.
This affects everybody. Like I don't even know if they can go to YouTube.
That would be wonderful. I'd really appreciate that, as that will ease the transition. Will this affect all Twitch Korea? I'm not sure. I think we've answered that. I know there will continue to be questions. I'll continue to try and provide clarity. We very much, I want to go ahead and wrap up by saying, I think you can see this was not a decision we wanted to make. Even as we made the decision, we reconsidered it repeatedly.
I mean, realistically, we
had a head of steam going to implement it to see if there were other options we could pursue. I want to highlight the reason we didn't pursue them, because we felt like that in the end would actually be a disservice to the Korean streamers, because we felt like it would lead them to believe that this would be viable long-term. And if we did not think that was a long-term viable, it would have just led to a slow reduction in the Twitch experience. And it would have slowly moved people over, which would have hurt our streamers and our viewers. And we felt like making a clean announcement as opposed to just slowly making it that Korea was not viable was the better decision. I want to thank all the Korean streamers again and their communities. This is a very difficult decision, sad day. We're very sorry to have to do this, and we want to do all we can to support you as you try to move your communities over to other services. So thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Damn. Yeah, that sucks. I mean, I think the big thing that we can see here, obviously, like from my perspective, it's one of those things that's like, we heard about like the Twitch perspective of things, right? But for me too, it's like, I have a lot of friends, right, that I've made over the years from Korea. So obviously I'm going to be like, this sucks, right? Like, it's like I've close friends that I've made throughout the years, all that stuff. So I really hope that like they get their stuff figured out. It's very clear that this was like an omega tough decision that they had to make at Twitch, and it's not really on. It doesn't really seem like it's on them at all. It's the Korean laws and the fact that I wish I had a better understanding of exactly how net neutrality worked. I mean, kudos to them for going live like right after the announcement, being like, "Yo, we're just going to talk about it and do a little bit of Q&A." But I mean, this kind of stuff, yeah, it can happen anywhere. You're right. It can literally happen anywhere, and it's happening in Korea. So it looks like the solution right now is to move to another platform like Africa TV or maybe YouTube. They said YouTube, but honestly, like if Netflix is having these problems, if Twitch is having these problems, I don't know, maybe YouTube just bites the bullet and eats the cost. Realistically, the only place where you'd have any sort of like, I mean, I would probably, if I was a Korean streamer, I would probably go YouTube. I would probably go YouTube, especially if I had a Western audience. I would really go in that direction. But The only one with real 100% certainty long term, or I say 100%, the one with the highest amount of certainty long term would be Africa TV. And Africa TV is not really, it's not that big of a website in the grand scheme of things, but it's really popular in Korea. That's really like your only two options. Because then everything else that's not, is there any other streaming service in Korea that I don't know about? No, Kick is not in Korea. Like a Korean streaming service. There are two local ones on YouTube. So there's Africa TV, and what's the other one? Naver V Live. I mean, here's the thing. It's like people from outside, companies from outside of Korea can do this. They can bite the bullet on it, but it's just something that doesn't really make any sense, right? And that's kind of the point that they hit on Twitch. So it's not to say that like somebody like Kick wouldn't do that. I just think that if I'm a Korean streamer, I don't know, knowing that that's the case for them, I wouldn't. I don't know what I would do. I mean, that seems that's very scary. 10 times the cost is crazy. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Kick is just all good and it's all fine. But I feel like if that was me, I would probably go YouTube. That YouTube seems like the wise decision there. Where it's like the mix of it's kind of the apex of like risk because they're so big and they have so much. I mean, I think if anybody can do it, it's YouTube. So that's just kind of the apex of risk versus, yeah, that hurts. That's rough, man. I feel so bad, man. I really, really do. I really, really do. Now, the other solution would be if you can apply for a visa and you can, if you're willing to, if you want to move out of Korea. I mean, let's say you move to America or something and you pay American taxes and you are an American, then that's the other solution. The other solution is you do that. You'd be fine. You'd transfer everything over. Technically, even if that was the case, I don't think you can like get I don't know how the laws work. If you can like get a visa or whatever, let's say you want to move, like you want to live in Korea, but you want to have like a visa and everything for America. If you can stay in Korea, I have no idea how the laws work, but if you can stay in Korea, stream to a cloud server, stream to an RTMP cloud server. The OBS has actually run out of a server in Los Angeles, New York, Texas, something like that. But I don't think that would even work. Now, I don't know how Ginny's situation works. Ginny did get a house in Texas. Ginny does own a house in Texas. I don't know. Ginny might be okay. Here's some good news. If you're a streamer in Korea and use our service, your stream enters Twitch's service in the USA regardless of where you actually are. As such, you will be able to use our service to stream to Twitch, even if Twitch blocks going live directly from Korea. Yeah, that's what I was just talking about. So that this doesn't really work for people being able to like actually stream work in Korea. You know what I mean? So no, chat, this does not mean you can go marry your favorite Korean streamer. Okay, come on. This does not mean your favorite Korean streamer all of a sudden wants to get married to you. Okay, except for me, in my case, I will be marrying Charming Joe. But for you guys, no. Yeah, that's not gonna be the case. Yeah. She said she loved me. No, she said I love you guys. She was talking about me specifically on an individual level. No. Oh man, dude, this is a hard one. Dan mentioned something that was I think it was wise. He talked about like people splitting up and changing platforms, and when the viewers kind of get stuck in limbo and they're like, do we go here? Do we go there? It's very hard because some streamers have like more of a Western community, and some Korean streamers have more of a like a Korean community. Like take a look at someone like Ginny, for example. Ginny has a lot of Western viewers. She has a lot of European viewers. She has a lot of American viewers. She has a lot of viewers from just around the globe, right? Her situation might be particularly weird. Actually, a lot of the Korean IRL streamers are like that, to be honest. Like, yeah, like Hachu or I just use Ginny as an example, right? But a lot of them are actually like that. So it is kind of weird. I think the point of wisdom that Dan had was the viewers getting stuck in limbo and people not all moving together, right? Because if you have some degree of a shared community, and then it's like, okay, all the Korean streamers are on Africa TV, right? If all the Korean streamers are on Africa TV, it helps the transition a lot. if all the Korean streamers go to YouTube, it helps the transition a lot. XBC is another really good example of somebody who has like a heavy Western community. There's a bunch of them, right? Like a lot of the guys that we know have like heavy Western communities. I think what would be wise for those people is probably YouTube over Africa TV, because I think going to Africa TV could be off-putting, or it's just hard to get into if you're not Korean. It would probably be hard to get into watching streams on Africa TV. It's spelled Africa. Yeah, it's spelled Africa. I mean, Kick is going to have the same problems Twitch has with this. I have gone through an involuntary platform change. Some of you guys know that. A lot of you guys don't know that. It's been so many years. But I got banned on YouTube. I started streaming on YouTube. I got banned, and then I came to Twitch, right? And I was doing well on YouTube. The last couple of weeks, I mean, I was hitting like up to like 500, 600 viewers at the time, which this was in 2017. Like, that's pretty solid, especially on YouTube. I ended up getting a ban, and then I moved to Twitch. And I remember I went from, I think I had literally just hit I was looking at it, and I just hit 600 viewers. I just hit 600 viewers, and I was climbing. I was live for like an hour, and or maybe I was live for like 30 minutes. I don't know. I was live for a short amount of time. Climbing, hit 600 viewers, got banned. Whenever I went and I started streaming on Twitch, I went from this like 500-600 number that I had a couple weeks prior to getting like 20, 30 viewers on Twitch, which is actually like, that's as many viewers as I had when I first started streaming. My first ever stream, I had 50 viewers. And my second stream, I had 30, and then I just slowly kind of grew from there, 30-ish, right? So I basically restarted from where I was on that first day. So it's a lot well, I made YouTube videos and stuff. Yeah, I made Paladin YouTube videos and stuff, so people had kind of gotten to know who I was. So yeah, I mean, that is a lot for first stream. But yeah, so YouTube SFan was wild, man. No, I got banned because I was streaming while private servers. That's basically what happened to me. So I've gone through that platform change. It is very, very scary, and it's very, very hard. It is not easy to change platforms. Going from YouTube to Twitch was something that for me was pretty difficult. Now, at that time, there's a few key differences. One, it was only myself. Two, I couldn't stream the game I was streaming anymore, so my content had to change. There was honestly, I mean, another difference is that there's less money involved in streaming in 2017 than there's now, which is either good or bad. Good from the perspective of there's less. Shut up, guys. It was good from the perspective of like, well, let's start with the bad. It was bad from the perspective of like, because there was less money involved, it was a little bit scarier because I made $10,000 like my first year streaming. You know, I made like 10K in 1 year of streaming ish. Like I don't remember the exact number. So because I did not have I wasn't making a lot of money streaming, it was like, okay, well, like I'm banned. And I was kind of doing it on the side while I was getting ready to go like coach football. So I was like, okay, I'm still going to keep trying to do this because like I got a hit. I'm fishing and I got a bite, right? So I got to keep going. But at the same time, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to lose a massive amount of income. Now the bad part of it is that I don't have a bunch of capital like saved up and I'm like, okay, like if something happens, like I have a backup plan, because I didn't actually. I was like minus like $100,000 at that point. Like I mean, I was in the red. So how long were your streams back then? I used to stream like 4 or 5 hours, 2 to 3 times a week. Yeah, and I would make YouTube videos and stuff like that. So my point being, I'm just trying to apply my own personal experience to this. I know how difficult it is and how hard it is to try and get people to move from one platform to another, and all the different like difficulties that comes with that. The good part of this is it is a lot of people at once, and because it's a lot of people at once, it is news. People are going to know about it. People are going to hear about it. Inevitably, you're not going to have 100% conversion. It is just not going to work that way, right? That's just the reality of it. But thankfully, because it is not just you and it's a bunch of other streamers, people like, it's like the idea of like essentially has a similar effect to that of like a collective bargaining situation where you want to have a bunch of streamers move to platform A, B, or C at the same time, which keeps their ecosystem of viewers on that platform, because they're like, well, my streamer is already here, I might as well just, or like 3 of my streamers are here, so I can watch streamer A, B, C and stay on the platform. That's kind of that's one of the pros. As much as this sucks, that is kind of like a positive. in that you're not alone. And because you're not alone, I think that you're going to have a lot of support from the community as well, right? I think that people are going to go and they're going to follow, and I would encourage people to do that. Like it's hard. It is very hard to regrow. I had a lot of help, I had to regrow, and then people knew me from who I was in the private server community. It's like, oh, it's S-Fan, it's the Rep Paladin memer, all kinds of stuff, right? And I got a lot of shout outs from Soda and from Asmund and all these guys, right? And I rebuilt up to whatever, right? Because these guys got to know me. So that helped me a lot. People need help, man. People need help. Like this is not going to be something that's easy. So like that's the biggest thing I could do is encourage that whenever these guys move platforms, wherever they move, if they move, right, if they don't come up with their own solution, to make sure to go and follow them. And that's just, this is the truth. So props to Dan Clancy for how he's handling this instead of being big corpa. I mean, like the whole thing sucks. I like Dan a lot. I like Dan a lot, but I like Dan a lot, and I think he's handling the situation as best as he can. It's rough. It's always going to be bad. It's always going to feel bad whenever something like this happens, and you hope that it never happens, right? But it did, and it is. So we'll see what happens. What about XQC? Yeah, exactly. I think it takes balls to go live and to be like, hey, let's talk about this. This is exactly what's going on. It sucks. Yeah, there's nothing that he can really do. Like you're kind of stuck. You don't really have an option. Yeah, we all know at the end of the day, this whole thing is 80% Mizkif's fault. So it's like, what are you gonna do?